Hi, and welcome to the Aspire Europe P3O course. In this video, we're going to look at some concepts around design of a P3O environment and some considerations when you move towards implementation. My name's Rod Sowden, Managing Director of Aspire Europe, and I'm going to be talking to you in this and the other videos associated with the qualification. So when we come to consider the design of our P3O environment, we've got to consider that there are a number of different functions that we need to build into this. So the first thing that we need to think about is the portfolio office itself. This is at the center of the whole model. And this one's the one that's providing governance across all project and program delivery in our organization. It's where the interfaces to the corporate functions like HR, finance, commercial will happen. And one of the key concepts within the portfolio office is ensuring that there is strategic alignment between what we commission and what the strategic needs of the organization are. From a governance perspective, we're looking at the approval of the projects and programs. Remember the stuff from the previous course, making sure we're doing things that are the right things for our business, as well as doing them the right way. And this is the best place to be looking at benefits, because benefits will aggregate across a number of parts of the organization. So we've got the concept of the portfolio office, but we're going to look at some options around that in a later part of the video. The next thing we've got to think about is our delivery offices. Now, this is the program office or the project office that's basically out there doing their stuff and delivering things. So whereas we have governance really in portfolio office, we have controls in the delivery offices. So they're checking that they're on schedule to deliver their outcomes, capabilities. If it's a program office, they will be looking across their projects, looking across the business chain stability. If it's a project office, they may only be thinking about delivering capabilities. But we, at this level, will be thinking about quality, we'll be thinking about outcomes, and we'll be making sure that we're delivering to time, cost, and quality. The third dimension is the Centre of Excellence. Now, this is the hub of knowledge for our organisation. Now, they sit separate to the other two, and what they're all about is setting standards for the way we run our projects and programs, making sure they've got the expertise to support the program project teams. They may provide some sort of consultancy services. They may do things like help efficient startup, that kind of thing. They'll be looking at capacity and capabilities, so they'd be looking after the training and development program and processes and systems, making sure we're as efficient as we can be. So you've got the first two, the portfolio office, aggregating all the things going across the organization, the delivery offices, making sure we're delivering things in the right way. The Centre of Excellence is the knowledge hub that keeps the whole thing together and brings continuity. Now, P3O talks a lot about the hub and spoke design. Now, this is a concept that's used extensively across the PMO or P3O world. So the idea is we have a central portfolio office, and around that we've got the wrapper, which is the Centre of Excellence. You know, they're there to support the central portfolio office the same as they are other parts. And then we've got these things called hubs. Now, these are hubs, could be in any part of the business. So in a standard organization, you might have an ICT hub that looks after all the ICT projects. You might have a capital hub that maybe is looking after accommodation and buildings, or whether you might call that facilities management. We might have an operations hub where they're actually implementing the change, or they may be doing other kind of work that we got to consider. So we can have multiples around the organization, because if you don't split it away, that central portfolio office becomes huge. So it's good to spread it around, and each one of those hubs provides a kind of central function within that division. So they will understand how that division works. They'll have more empathy. They'll know the senior managers. And that's why this model is so very popular in big organizations. And then around that, we've got programs and projects. So we've got delivery offices working. So if you're in the ICT hub, You could have a program running with a number of projects, so they might have their own hub, maybe doing digital stuff, but you might have some projects reporting directly in because they're a little bit unusual or they're a little bit bigger than the other ones. So there's plenty of flexibility in this hub and spoke model, which is why it's so popular when it's part of an implementation program. The alternative to a hub and spoke is a central portfolio office. And this may well be more appropriate in smaller organizations, because if you're thinking of a big organization, then the danger is that this becomes so big and unwieldy that it's unmanageable. So the idea being you have a central organizational portfolio office where everything's happening. So you've got your portfolio functions, as we discussed earlier. We might have some delivery functions that have been centralized, maybe resourcing, contracts, HR. So you can gain some efficiencies in that area. And of course, you would still have the center of excellence as it is in both the spoken hub and the central one. And then what you have is program offices and project offices, but they report directly in. So you've got better direct control. But if you're in a big organization, it's arguably that this is unmanageable. But in a smaller organization, it's probably your starting point for setting up your portfolio office environment. Once we've decided on our design, we then need to start to think about what we need to put into place. And P3O uses the program management blueprint concept, which requires you to sit down and think about all the outcomes that you need at the end to actually have the fully functioning operation that you want. So rather than make it up incrementally, sit down and think about what it is you need. So it uses this concept called the blueprint, which has got 4 key headings in it, which the acronym POTI is used for this. So first thing we have to think about is processes. Now, obviously, before we can do that, we need to think a little bit about the scope of what we hope to deliver. And if you look at some of the things that we've discussed, the range of services and functions that you might want to include within your portfolio office, these are not going to be achieved overnight. So we need to think about the end game here. So what services do we need? What standards are we going to work to? What standards do we need to observe? For example, if you're ISO 9001, how would that work? And then the procedures and operating arrangements that you need to have in place for the future. So you design the process model for the portfolio. Then the next thing we need to think about is the organization. We need to think about who reports to who, what skills you need and responsibilities. But a very important thing to consider here is the governance, because when you set up this new organization, how is it going to fit with other parts of the organization? And a real classic problem can be the head of the portfolio office. What level of authority do they have over a program or project sponsor? Where does that governance sit? So this is an important thing to think about at the start of your development of the blueprint. Information management, well, a portfolio office in itself is all about information. So one of the big problems we've seen with rollouts is they haven't really thought about this. They've thought about processes and people and tools, but they haven't thought about the information they need at the end. So we need to think about reporting cycles. How is the data going to be gathered? What are the sources? What are the dashboards that we want to have? And what kind of analysis do we plan to do? So if you're using earned value, or if you're going to track by milestones, all these things need to be designed at the outset so that the information is there to enable you to do your analysis further down the track. And once we've done that, we can think about our tools and technology. So you don't start by saying we're going to have a reporting tool. You start by saying what information will we need and what will we report against. We've got to think about how these tools link to process support, how they will fit with a reporting cycle and enable reporting. Far too many of them seem to be obstructions to reporting. And how are these tools going to do the data aggregation? So we need to be very careful. You know, you can choose to go and buy the best in breed tool on risk, on planning, or whatever it is, and then you find that they don't actually fit together and you can't aggregate the data. So key elements of performance are data aggregation and analysis. So you need to design that into your model early on. Finally, we're just looking at the P3O implementation. So once again, P3O draws on program management and MSP in particular, because you are implementing a change program. You're going to be changing the current arrangements. You're potentially conflicting with existing governance and authority models, and you are bringing new people in and new working practices. So there is going to be quite a significant change. And even though P3O has been talking about this for 10, 12 years now, people are still not doing this. So please take this on board. So there are a number of stages to a program implementation. First of all, MSP calls it identify the program. Now what that actually means is, where are we now? We call that the as is state. The vision is where we want to be. What do we expect to be when we get there? What are we going to, and this is our value proposition. Sometimes that can become the program office charter. And we put together the outline business case. What's the cost now? What benefits are we going to deliver? And what outcomes do we need? Now, quite often, particularly on immature organizations, you don't actually know the cost of failure. So the business case is quite difficult to put together. As you move up into levels 3 and 4 maturity, you know the costs, you know where the savings are. Once we get that signed off, we can then think about program definition. What that is really the completion of a vision statement, the blueprint, which I talked about just now, taking all that, put together the business case and the budget, plan the projects that we're going to use, what resources do we need, what stakeholders are going to be involved, and produce a plan, which they can roll out when, once again, implementation plans all seem to be big bangs when we look at them. But an implementation for an effective P3O is inherently linked to P3M3 maturity. So it is a 2 to 3, maybe even 4-year plan to ratchet you up those performance levels. And then we move into delivery. So during that, we now start to put the new services and capabilities in, you know, the risk management, the planning services, all those. And hopefully we start to see some early benefits from performance improvement. And sometimes just knowing where you are is a benefit. Yeah, just knowing where you are losing money on implementations is a benefit in itself. And then we review, mark our progress, and move on to the next tranche, as with any other program. And finally, closure. You don't really close the program. What you do is you move into a continual improvement mode, but you need to formalize it and formally sort of state this is where we are. So that's kind of good practice. At the end of the day, the portfolio office is going to be advising projects and programs. It should eat some of its own dog food, as they say, and actually do what it tells others to do. So a couple of key points. We need to get a mandate to improve the services as they are. And once we've done the identification, we get a brief agreed to improve it, or you could be calling that your strategic outline business case. We then get our budget and plan agreed, and then we move into delivery. We get ourselves some outcomes, we get ourselves some benefits, and then we go through that delivery cycle in as many stages as is needed to hit the blueprint, and while the money's available. And then finally, best thing you can do is have a P3M3 assessment to tell you where you are. After the first tranche, you might have gone from 1 to 2, and it might take a couple of goes to get yourselves into 3. Okay, so I hope that really helped set out the. Okay, well, that's the end of the video. I hope it's proved helpful. It's time for you to go and grab yourself a nice cup of coffee, think about what I've said, and then get on with the module.